This is the first film that I couldn't fall asleep afterwards. I stayed up. No hyperbole here. This is real. I couldn't fall asleep at all. I stayed up the whole next day. What would happen if instead of opaque heads, people had monitors that their thoughts appeared on? Welcome to Additional Crew. If you haven't watched The Seventh Continent and you want to know if there's something that you might be interested in, stay tuned. We'll warn you when the spoilers are coming. For anyone who's watched these before, we've changed up the format just a little bit here. So we are going to give a spoiler-free part in the beginning here that is just our likes and dislikes of the movies. Think of like a pros, cons list. But we will get into our spoiler-heavy talks afterwards. So The Seventh Continent is the film we're doing today. That is a film that is from the highly esteemed Austrian director Michael Haneke. It was his first features film, but he worked in TV for a lot of years before that, so it's not like it's his first rodeo. It was just his first rodeo that made it to the theater. Before we dive into that film, though, let me introduce the host of this episode. I'm Nick. Hey, I'm here like all these things. With me is Willie. What's up, Willie? How's it going?
Hey, it's going good. It's going good, Nick. I I stayed up late last night watching this movie for the first time. I had seen another Haneke film before. I watched The Piano Teacher like a few years ago, and I didn't really pay attention. I was kind of out of it during it. There's some scenes that stood out, so I had an idea of his work and kind of what to expect going into it. But this morning I had to get up and I took one of my clients to court, and I was there as an advocate. I'm not a lawyer, but I was in court with him, and I think watching this movie last night kind of set the tone for my day. And just being there in society with the man, I was like thinking about this movie while sitting in the courtroom at 8:30. Like, yeah,
yeah, that doesn't feel like it's the best vibes to have.
Better vibes than maybe how I felt at times.
Yeah, that's pretty. That could be heavy. Yeah. This is the first film. I will admit this just immediately off the bat. This is the first film that I couldn't fall asleep afterwards. I stayed up. No hyperbole here. This is real. I couldn't fall asleep at all. I stayed up the whole next day until the regular sleep time on the following day after watching it. And I don't know exactly what it was. It just struck such a chord for me. And we'll talk more about that later. But if you're looking for a movie, this would probably be the most, in my opinion, right away. The horror movie it's not horror. It's not a horror. It's a psychological whatever. It's just a movie that struck a chord with me strong enough that it kept me up all night. And that's never happened to me. And maybe when I was like 13 and watched The Grudge, but that was a whole different reason, like very different reasons.
It lingered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit more about how it did. So we'll keep this spoiler free. But first off, Igor, take us to the finds of the week.
Yes.
Okay, so finds of the week. We have a little new episode. Willie, I'll start off here. I wanted to tell everyone, if you haven't noticed, but Barnes & Noble is for the whole month of July. So for just a little bit longer, they're having a 50% off Criterion sale for physical discs, which is always nice. It's probably one of the reasons that I love still shopping at Barnes & Noble's is they have sales that are pretty good and they go for a long time, and you can just go in and browse at movies. You don't have to know what you're getting beforehand. So I'm going to be bringing you some stuff that's maybe not rare, but it is new to me. And I went with the John Waters movies. So I picked up Pink Flamingos, classic John Waters film. I've actually never watched it. With John Waters, I don't know a lot about his movies except for every interview that he does. I've loved. I've seen Hairspray, the original one.
The original Hairspray is the one that I think maybe the only one I've seen of his, and it's just, I grew up watching the 2007 remake and then going to the original Hairspray. Like, they're just such different movies that it made me appreciate like his initial vision so much.
That, and I think Crybaby is his as well, and Crybaby has kind of a similar vibe to me. That one just has Johnny Depp in it. But I also got this one, Desperate Living, and I wasn't really I didn't set out to get two John Waters movies, but we had just seen a rat outside in my backyard that we had to get rid of, and I was there with my kid, and he's like, "Look at that one, that's got a rat on a plate. You should get that one." And I was like, "Okay, all right. Who am I to say no?" The kid chooses. And Janice and me have been going through, or Janice and I, in correct parlance, have we been going through all the old Cillian Murphy movies? I don't know. Just to see what he's like, because I couldn't remember any other than 28 Days Later that I had actually watched.
Have you seen Red Eye?
Dog, that's the one.
No
Pick
way.
that one up. Yeah,
What?
yeah. So
Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
this one will be me and Janice are going to talk about some of the Killian Murphys. Do you know if it's Killian or Cillian?
I always thought it was Cillian until the Oscars last year, and then I found out it was in fact Killian.
Sorry, that was a button
He
malfunction.
go ahead
But
and interject there.
yeah, he's like, I'll tell you. No,
Yeah.
okay. So you said at the Oscars it was Cillian.
I thought it was Cillian, and then at the Oscars and the award season, I discovered that it is indeed Killian, which is cool.
See,
Like cooler. I like kill with a C. That's cool.
yeah. I figured it wouldn't because the beer Killian's Red is spelled with a K, right? And that's an Irish beer.
Yeah.
God, if you're listening and you're from Ireland and I'm saying some stupid shit, please just like call that out because like I might be. There's a real chance I am.
Yeah, they can handle it.
But yeah, so we watched this movie, Watching the Detectives, and we'll have a review on that one. Me and Janice will coming up pretty soon here, and then we're gonna do Red Eye after that. I'll also have a review on that one. I've never seen these movies because I had only seen 28 Days Later, and then he's all Inception was the Chris Nolan film he was in, and then Batman Begins.
Oh, he was a scarecrow in Batman Begins. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the one in Batman Begins was kind of like, in my opinion, not super great because he seemed kind of like just an annoying character.
Kind of undercooked. I liked his cameo in The Dark Knight though at the very beginning, how that kind of started the movie. That was cool.
And then if you haven't seen 28 Years Later, Bone Temple, he has a cameo at the end of that leads to the next one. And that movie, me and Adam will be talking about that one soon. I'm all about the Cillian Murphy right now, and that one. Anyways, we'll get there.
I need to catch up on the 28 series. I'm way behind. I saw the first one several years ago, and shamefully I've not seen any of the sequels.
Well, I'll say for this: 28 Days Later, good movie. 28 Weeks Later, really bad movie with an awesome intro. Watch the intro, just turn the rest off. Who cares? It's stupid. 28 Years Later is like up and down for me. It had some really good parts, but it also had a lot of weird parts. Not great. 28 Years Later, Bone Temple.
I heard that one's fucking awesome.
I thought it was going to be overrated, and then I watched the film and it wasn't overrated. It was rated correctly. That was a great movie. Ralph Fiennes. Man, dude, these Scottish and Irish actors, they're gonna mess me up, man.
I think it's Ray Fiennes, but I like to think of it as Ralph Fiennes.
Right, Ray Fiennes. He's such an amazing actor, so don't take anything away from what I'm saying. Like, his presence in that movie makes that movie about a million times better than it has any right to be. He's so gosh darn good.
He's such a good. I mean, obviously, like Schindler's List is a classic example. Like Red Dragon, I still think about his performance in Red Dragon. If you haven't seen that. Yeah, he's really good.
In Red Dragon mixes him with Thomas Harris writing, so like you got to get in on that, man.
And Voldemort, I guess too. He's so good.
Like seriously, like that movie, and it's just a wonderful, unique zombie take. But we'll talk more about that one later, so you'll hear about that later. For now, Willie, do you have any finds you want to talk about?
Honestly, I've been pretty plugged into work and sports right now. I've been following the World Cup. As much as I can as an American, I feel like I'm doing my global duty by checking scores and watching some games. I went to a local soccer bar here in Portland with my girlfriend and their dad, and they're both their dad's from the Netherlands, and that was really really exciting atmosphere. We saw one of the games that they won, so that made me like really get into the appeal of soccer or football. Apart from that, I haven't been really following a lot of media, but I have I've been getting into some I always go through phases of music, and right now I'm into some 50s 60s soul music. I've been listening to some of the Shy Lights and some Sam Cooke.
Hell yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, and this is really random, but I just watched a great hour-long YouTube documentary yesterday about the assassination of James Garfield. I'm a really big history buff and presidential history buff, and there's very few video essays that are both engaging and just well animated and well made, and they're so far and few between on YouTube. They're all either really political or just poorly edited or just not good, and this one was one of the better presidential history YouTube video essays I've seen in a while, and I was like, hell yeah,
sick. That's awesome. Really, I love that. Especially finding good content on YouTube is a diamond in the rough, man. If you can find it, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move into the actual parts of the movie review. This first part here is going to be spoiler free. Me and Willie are just going to give quick little overviews of our likes, dislikes of the film. So, Igor, take us away.
Yes, master.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start off. So, if you're going to watch The Seventh Continent, here are the things that I think stand out the most. Uh, First off, for my positives here, it's very emotionally impactful. Like, this movie will, I think, leave some form of emotion with you, and so just be ready for that. That's a pro for me, because movies that move me, I care about and I like. It could be a con for you if you're not in the right place. Another pro: visually interesting, camera techniques that not only look good but provoke emotion on their own. Uh, Very easy to connect with and feel what the characters on screen are feeling. Holds up more than 30 years in the future. You know, like this is it was made in 1988. It's now 2026, and I don't feel like it's aged in a way that makes the message non-relevant. Negatives: do not watch if you're depressed. This isn't a good depression movie. Like, trust me on that one. If you're depressed, just skip it. Wait till you're in a good place. I told you, it kept me up all night, and I wasn't depressed. So if you're depressed, I would say it's not going to help you. It's going to hurt. You need an attention span and the ability to withstand long periods of time without significant dialogue. Like, a lot of this movie really does rely on your patience for the things that it's building to set off, and you may even say nothing's happening. I think that it would be easy for a lot of people to say nothing is happening in this film. I disagree with that, but that's the sort of patience you need. You need to be able to get through that. Neutral: you don't get any answers. This isn't a movie where at the end you're going to feel like it's like a book, you know, where you're like, okay, or a closed book where you're like, I got all my threads wrapped up tightly, we're good to go. You're expected to put the film, like, you're supposed to put the belief that the audience is responsible for coming up with their own answers, and you have to be okay with that if you watch this movie. So you decide based on that whether or not it's a movie worth watching.
It's just kind of the whole experience. My positive. So the acting was really, it's a very difficult assignment without getting into spoilers. It's just the actors had to portray a lot of emotion while still being very, very subtle in their delivery. I really loved some of the nonverbal acting specifically, and the kind of a journey you take with these characters and their emotions. And there's a really fine line between, you know, over the top acting, giving the subject matter, and, you know, just portraying things very nuanced and just with subtle facial motions. And I think that the young actress Leni Tenzier, probably saying that wrong. She played the girl Eva. She was really, really good for a child actor. She was given just an extremely difficult assignment, and I think she really knocked it out of the park. I really loved the music throughout the movie. I liked, there were some just scenes in particular we'll talk about where I think the use of music was, I mean, it was particularly, you know, captivating in a way because so much of the film is monotonous and there's routine and, you know, not a lot is going on. So when there is music, it often coincides with a scene of like a scene that has a big emotion attached to it, or there's actual displays of emotion. And I think they used music really well. And I really like the music. I really like 80s Euro synth pop and some 80s power ballads. And it was nice. It was kind of like, it took me out of the film, but in a good way. I also agree. I think it holds up really well, you know, as much as like a end of Cold War Austrian society, you know, is different to our current society. It also is kind of similar in some ways. And I think that the overall like feelings that the family conveys and what it has the audience kind of experience secondhand, I think is still like relevant. I think this movie could come out today and still like have a lot of themes that hold up very, very well. Kind of a neutral one for me, and this kind of made me pause and reflect just on my own life and my own self. But I had a lot of triggering feelings during the jump cuts from scene to scene, just because my brain is so capitalism poisoned that I thought there was going to be an ad. Like 80% of the jump cuts, I was like, oh, ad. Nope. It's like my brain just is like, I was like a Pavlov dog. Like, I was like getting a treat every time there was, except I wasn't getting a treat. I was getting an ad, but it was like my brain could not let go of that. So that's kind of a neutral feeling for me. I really, some of the negatives, I love the simplicity of the film, but I think in some ways, arguably, the climax or like what it was really building to didn't feel warranted. And I'll just say, in that sense, I think that a lot of the themes or the feelings that the family is conveying, I wasn't really clear exactly where this emotional reaction was stemming from. There is I guess, a subplot in a way that deals with grief and loss, and it felt like the movie was building towards something that was a depiction of grief or guilt or something like that, and then the end is a little bit different. The message or the feeling, the decisions that the families make don't stem particularly from grief or guilt. It's more of a complex kind of alienation, and that just didn't really come across to me in the same way that I think the film was trying to portray. And I think because of that, I just didn't feel a strong emotional attachment to some of the characters, and I think at times I was, very engaged because of the buildup, and the ending was one of my favorite parts of the movie, but it didn't really bring together like what I was expecting, and I think because of that, it just kind of took me out of any like strong empathy for the characters. And as disturbing and as dark as it got, sometimes it felt like it was I almost like wanted to laugh because it was so absurd.
Sick. Okay. So, yeah. If you want to watch the movie and you haven't watched it yet, this is the part where I'm going to tell you, go watch the movie, come back, listen to the rest. Because after this, we're going to get into spoilers. As you can tell, we're already itching to do so. We usually jump into them right away. This was for the people who want to hear and haven't seen the movie. You have something now, and you have an idea of what you're getting into. But please, stop the review right this second. Go watch the movie. Oh, God, if you're not depressed, go watch the movie. If you are depressed, go watch one of my other reviews. But if you're not depressed, go watch the movie, come back, because we are about to bust into it. So, Igor, bring us to the human stuff. Yes. The human stuff is the story and the philosophy of the film. So this is a little bit different of a section, so I'll explain real quick for this first one we're doing. Or this is just kind of like where we talk about the stuff that connects with you as a person. And this is for each reviewer separately. So you might hear me and Willie say different things. That's the beauty of film. I think I've thought about this a lot, and I'm like, what is the one thing that AI can't replicate in a film review? And it's how it actually connects with the person. Because we're all watching the same thing and getting slightly different messages out of it. I can tell you how good a shot is, but I can't tell you what the shot meant to Willie. Only Willie can tell you what the shot meant to Willie. And of course, we started on a guy who will never give an answer as to what any part of the movie means. So we all get to make up our own minds. And this is the beauty of this. So the Seventh Continent is a movie that I had this curiosity because I went into this with a reviewer's eye, and I got 2.5 pages of notes. That might be like the most I've ever got out of a movie because I was really just like in it. And it's weird because it is a very droll movie in a lot of ways. There's not a lot of color. There's not a lot of action. Do we see a face for the first 30 minutes? I don't think we do. I think it's all just hands and stuff.
At least with the women, I think we see some of George's face at times, and even the brother, maybe Alexander. But I think I think the close up of Eva in the scene with the school teacher, I think is the first time we really see her face, and even that is like it's very close up. It's not like you're not like really seeing everything about her, or getting a strong sense of her, what she looks like, or her character.
And I had this thought about the way this movie's filmed, and I think that so it takes place on 3 separate days over 3 years. So you just see the same day taking place all these years, and it's based on a true story that Michael Haneke read in the newspaper about a family, and this is where the spoilers are going to come in, that committed suicide and destroyed all their stuff. And that was pretty much all the information that was given because they destroyed all their stuff. No one ever, could figure out why because they didn't leave a note or anything. They just family committed suicide, including the kids. Everything destroyed. They took in their money out of the bank, as you see in this film, and they threw it away. And he was kind of like, "Hey, how can I have a film that doesn't answer that, but portrays maybe the reason why, or that portrays a society that can lead to that sort of thing?" And so this movie connected to me in a lot of ways, and they hurt, and I don't know that I love talking about them, but I'm going to for the sake of the people listening. For me, I think that a lot of this movie is from the child's point of view, you're just watching the child watch parents do things and not really understanding. Everything's out of context because things aren't in context. We're not giving any emotional buildup because she has no emotional connection to her parents or the things that she has. She's just going through the days, watching her parents in places where they don't even say words to each other. They're just doing upkeep on things. They are just using things to build other things, to get money to buy more things. And I think anyone, maybe not anyone, but at least in my position where it's like I have to go to my job every day to make sure that I can pay for rent and pay for utilities and buy the things that my kids need. And I can't just like dip out of that at any time, right? There's no like long-term savings where I could be like, for a year, I'm just going to go do a thing I love. Like the movie reviews are the things I love, but this movie shows like without something that you care about, what is life but upkeeping things that keep you alive?
Yeah, there's a confinement there where like
Mm-hmm.
and the movie does a really good job of like portraying the routine of things and not having any scenes that convey anything outside of that like expected norm. You know, it's very monotonous, and there's a consistency to it, and there's not inherent sadness, especially in the first half, but there's a lack of joy.
Yeah, a lack of joy. And I also think that like the unable, because I don't want to say it's an unwillingness to open up that the family kind of shows. I think it's an inability to open up that is really damaging, right? Because like you get so used and so into this routine that you have that things that come in and kind of like interrupt it are almost foreign. You
Mm-hmm.
can't connect with them. So you see the brother crying over like the mom dying. I assume because they don't really exactly specifically tell you why he's crying because that would be too easy. But that he's crying at a dinner scene that's narrated by a pop song, you know, so you're getting this like complicated mixture of emotions that are going on and just nobody's saying a single damn thing. They go over there and they hug him, a kind of, it's like a vague half hug, you know. It's not nearly what the sort of grief level you would be experiencing if your
Yeah,
mom passed away and you cared
yeah.
about her.
And
And
Ava's just like staring.
she's trying to figure out, she's like, is this right? Is this a good emotion? Like, oh my God, there's someone crying in my house. And I don't know. I grew up in a middle class family, and this is what it would feel like for me a lot of the time is like, hey, if you came over and you cried, the second you walked out that door, one of my parents would be like, wow, they must have mental health issues. And, you know, and it'd be like, dude, their mom just died. That's absolutely appropriate.
Yeah.
But there's this and I don't know where it stems from, but there's this inherent, to me at the very least, I can't speak on your behalf, Willie, but for me there's an inherent truth to this inability to open up. And it's something that I remember complaining about. So me and Janice, who she does reviews, she's my partner, we talked about this a lot. Like the most damaging part of growing up in a middle class family like this is that everyone is so shut off that they can't talk to each other. And maybe this isn't like a universal truth. Maybe this is just my family, but I connected very strongly to this family because I've seen this before. It's like the 2008 housing crash. I'm going to age myself a little bit here. Like my family lost a lot of money. They almost, you know, lost their house, everything. God damned if I knew. They wouldn't tell me
Mm-hmm.
a single thing. They would just smile and be like, it's okay, don't worry. And you think that that's kind and that's nice, but really what it is it's alienating. You can no longer ask about these things. You can no longer think about these things in the way that you need to.
Yeah, I think the scene that stood out to me the most in terms of like my experience as a child and kind of the beginnings of disorganized attachment style is growing up in like a lower class family. My family was not as quite as stoic as this, but the scene that struck me the most that like reminded me of like my childhood is when they're in the car. One of the many scenes where they're in the car wash and the mom just starts crying, but and there's like some connection between the parents, like recognition of like her emotions, but then like there's no like follow up like why are you emotional? It's just like outburst of emotion that just kind of come and go. So like there's a feeling there where like as a child it's like I don't really know what that means. Like I can sense it, but like we don't talk about it. So like that scene stuck out to me a lot. It's like, oh, I can I can relate this to my life growing up.
Right. And I do think that this movie is like very targeted towards the middle class life and living in like this lap of luxury. This isn't fair to watching the movie, but watching some of the interviews afterwards, there was some talk about how the parents of these people, not the parents in this movie, but the parents in this movie would have gone through a lot of strife in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
and that this generation was the first that had a semblance of probably happiness and stability and peace. and finding that stability and peace without, all the strife wasn't something that they had ever been taught, anything that they'd ever been used to. So
Yeah,
like you can't, they're just not genetically or biologically conditioned to accept okay.
yeah. It's like that weird kind of like we talk about like in our millennial and later millennial generations, like we're like kind of existing in this society that is like incredibly different from the past, and like just so much has changed in the past even 20 years since we were kids. But that kind of that middle generation, like the boomers to earlier Gen X, I guess most specifically boomers in this film, kind of coming in that limbo between like just before the end of the Cold War, but a generation or two removed from the beginning of the robustness of the Industrial Revolution, is that there's that middle ground where there's still that strong influence from the past of like you just work and you have to like work to survive and there's no luxury, but like you're still just one adult generation out of that, and it's still before like our time, but it's a weird kind of limbo generation that has never existed before and hasn't really existed since, having that experience of both.
Mm-hmm. I, I just think about this movie, and again, I trip over myself. I'm probably going to trip over myself a few different times because, like I said, this one had like such a strong emotional reaction. I didn't expect it. To be real with you, when the movie ended, I thought I was going to be okay. I tried to go to sleep, and then it just like circled around my brain like a fucking shark. It was like, I'm not going to let you go. You're going to think about every little part of this and try to psychoanalyze it and see why it stabbed you like a knife, right? And I think, to be clear, I'm going to give this a positive to this film because not many movies have ever made me do that. They haven't made me just like completely just get stuck on it. Like there's nothing else that I can really think that's breaking through. It is this film. So one thing that I think I really liked, and that's in quotes because I don't know that I liked it, but I think it was really effective, was for me, the 3-year buildup and watching kind of the same things happen every time. That repetition really did show how uneventful their life is, that they have to force these events to happen. And when we saw the times that there was positive music playing or something like this, where it was like almost we could be happy here, there's joy, it was always also mixed with something really awful happening. And every time someone woke up, they were listening to the news about all the terrible things that were going on, and it's just like you're getting berated with all these emotions that are being fed to you. And yet then on the other end, you're unable to show those emotions back to the people that you love when the moments arise. When Eva, I think her name was spelled Evie, but they called it Eva. It's not important. When she pretends to be blind, and then her mom slaps her, she's also upset at her. And then the mom had seen the article about
the kid, yeah,
the blind person. It was just so sad because it was one of these moments where it's like you were letting society expectations dictate the way you treat your daughter. This is another thing you're stuck in. You're so stuck in this society that you can't see that your daughter needs love. And when she tries to hug her, it's so much more awkward. And the slap is so just normal. It just comes across like so normal, but the hug is like, oh, I'm trying to get you out. I got your head a little bit. That was good, right? We good.
Yeah.
But the slap was just like she lied to her kid and she slapped her. And, this is the stuff that would have happened beforehand. Like I was born in 1990 and I got spanked. We got slapped sometimes. It was okay. It wasn't like, and I don't say it really mean it was okay. I hope everyone who's listening can understand what I'm saying. The context was different at that time. Like it was just a part of life. This wasn't like, oh my God, what did they do? This was like, okay, yeah, they spanked their kid.
Oh yeah, my dad's talked about like even when he was in school, like in middle school, he was like getting like his knuckles slapped by nuns with rulers in Catholic school, and like he doesn't talk about it as a traumatic thing. He's just like a fact.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that emotional cutoff is just, it's so strong in this movie, and yet it resonates pretty. I think it was done so incredibly effective that I was able to place myself in both the kids' role and the parents' role in this, because the parents are being dictated by society. And a lot of times as a parent myself, I'll think about how I am raising my kids because society wants them to be certain ways, and how I'm raising them because they are certain ways. and I aim to raise them for who they are.
Uh-huh.
But that society stuff just sneaks back in. It's insipid. It doesn't matter. Like, you'll be like, okay, but yeah, you have to do these things because I'm being told you have to by who? I don't really know. Like,
I know, like, especially from the kids' perspective, like, she shares in their depressive state, and a part of it obviously is influenced by being in the home and being around people in that state, but also just like, what does she know outside of the state? Not just in her home
mm-hmm.
environment, but in the world in general.
Yeah, even the PE teachers, and we do get to see a PE teacher. It's one of the few people outside of the home that we get to see. And you think maybe, hey, she's going to show a little bit of compassion or love towards this, and she still doesn't.
No.
She just wants to make sure she's not lying about being blind. It's, again, how can we get back to things just being okay and regular?
Yeah.
Let's not care about the people. Let's just move back to being regular. And this is all to culminate with the destruction of their property. The letter to the grandparent, or to the parents, grandparents, depends on whose point of view you're looking at, and eventually the suicide. So the suicide, of course, as far as the human stuff, the suicide was incredibly brutal. I mean, just every part of it just hit me really badly. Watching the little girl die, again, I have a kid, 6 years old, and I found that it's changed the way kids in media react with me. Like, when she said this, like when she had to take that drink of milk, she was like, "It's so bitter."
Mm, yeah.
Oh, dude,
That was before any side effects kicked in. That was when they were listening to Meatloaf.
they're just sitting there listening to music, and she just takes a drink from mom and says, "It's so bitter," and that's the perfect kid reaction. Like, especially, I think she's supposed to be 5 years old in this movie. It's the exact reaction they would have, even if they knew what was going on. They'd be like, "Oh, that's nasty," and then still drink it because they're weirdos like that. And the acting and that little part right there, dude, the tears flowed for me. I was just like, no, she doesn't. She knows, but she doesn't know. Like, this kid can't make this decision. There's no way she can make this decision. I don't. She seems super emotionally developed, but she's 5.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
That
and then you watch. Oh, go on.
I was going to say I think it was. I was actually going to ask before the gurgling scene. Was that her gurgling and choking, or was that the mom? I don't remember because it's in the dark.
I think it was the mom. I think the daughter had already died at that point.
By the time the mom drank the drink, she was okay.
Because I think the mom throwing all the bottles of alcohol and stuff, that was after the daughter died. That was like the reaction.
Okay, yeah, when she's distraught after. Okay.
Something that really stuck with me in this is that during that final act, the only time we actually get to see them look like a home that cares about each other or understands emotions at all is once they've destroyed everything. Mm-hmm. And once they've decided they're going to commit suicide, like, you see them wearing just nothing, like they're wearing sweaters and they're all looking all disheveled, but they're all sitting on the bed together and they're holding each other. They're not trying to be professional at the table and always doing the right thing. They're just actually just like lying down next to each other. Someone's drinking, but they're talking,
Yeah.
And it's this crazy, to me, this is what really makes the final act work, is it's that juxtaposition. We go from cold first 2 acts to such a warm third act doing all these heinous, terrible things. Mm-hmm. Where, like, these heinous, terrible things may have helped them get there, but we can all clearly, they would assume almost every single person who watches this movie understand that the third act is not a healthy behavior. However, it did unlock the healthy behaviors.
Exactly. First there was the physical catharsis of just destroying all the stuff, and like, you can talk about the deeper meaning of like what the film's trying to say, like, it's society, like, we're flushing money and all this, but like, I think actually just like the physical movement and like not being so rigid and not like being stuck in your routine of like sitting proper and straight at a dinner table, or like earlier in the film when they're watching TV with the brother Alexander, they're all just sitting on the couch, just kind of proper. So that like actual physical catharsis, I think, was kind of how it starts, and then like, yeah, obviously the emotional catharsis of knowing that they're going to do it and like having committed to it, I think, really comes across when they're all just like laying on the bed together, watching music videos. That was like oddly like heartwarming in a way.
Yeah, it was. Gosh, dude, this is where the 5-year-old dying was so hard, because it's like they just, it's too much of a stand-in for any kid that's 5 years old, because she was hugging her polar bear Stuffy, and you can get these like analogs for your own children, and it hurt so bad. But the rest of it, yes, I 100% agree. It was just so comforting in these moments. Um, the I had another point here, but I lost it. One other thing that I thought was good was that we did see the 5-year-old show the only real sign of regret when the fish died, because the fish dying, and I hated that. Like,
That was the hardest scene for me, I think.
yeah, like don't kill animals, man. I don't know if he really did. I couldn't find that information. I tried, which if I can't find it, I assume he did.
It's
Because why else would you hide it?
European cinema in the 80s. I don't know.
Yeah, and I know, and there's a lot of people who are like, "Oh, fish don't. They're not the. Just don't kill animals for movies. It's not. It's not a good thing to do." Um, I think we know that now, at
I
least.
was
But yeah, so that felt bad. But then watching the little girl, like, get upset and be like, "No, not that. Never that." That's like, so she understands that there's some like sanctity to life here.
mhm.
Um, but
that
unfortunately, at that point, it's too late.
that part. I was reading a quote from the director, and he and actually this was like one of my fun facts I mentioned, or part of it at least. But basically, like he correctly predicted that the scenes that would cause the people the most distress wasn't like the family like killing themselves on screen, but rather the scene of them the parents flushing the money and then the fish tank destruction scene. And I I kind of want to push back on that. Maybe he just like was his quote was misinterpreted, but like the fish dying scene, that's not what the reason that scene stood out to me and was disturbing wasn't anything to do with the animals dying for me. It was just the fact that the little girl was so distressed and was showing that emotion. That's like what made the scene disturbing. It wasn't the fish tank or the dad's implications of disregarding his daughter's possessions, and it was just like her like visceral reaction that like made me like disturbed.
Hey, because you can imagine how the girl as an actor also probably really hated that. Like, don't make little kids go through that, and don't kill animals for movies. Just in general, again, we know that by now. The the emotional reaction to the flushing down the money down the toilet is funny, because in general, I would tell you money is not my number one priority in almost anything, and yet at about the minute mark of that fucking scene going on, and I started going like, well, this is just excessive, man. You could give that to someone, and I'm like, oh fuck, what is going on?
That scene, it was so goddamn long. Holy shit! Like, I know they were wanting to convey how much money it was, but like you could have been shredding it. You could have just done it. It was just like there was obviously a lot of scenes that dragged on, and that was fine at times. But like, holy shit, that scene, I was like, I get it. I really get it. You're all this money. We saw you in the scene at the bank when you took all this money out to go to Australia. This is what you're doing with the money. You sold the car. This is what you're doing with the money. I get that. Like, holy shit.
This is just a point he really needed to hammer home, was that
Really,
money
really
is money is involved in this.
yes.
I've had an interpretation of this movie. Like, my first knee jerk reaction to this movie was, okay, well, this is about how, like, consumerism and capitalism is really bad for you, and it like will lead to you just losing out in your soul and the joy of life and like the spice of it. And I've had this second thought that where it's not exactly wrong, because I originally I thought like, well, he's saying that maybe suicide is like a freeing action in this case, right?
Mm-hmm.
The family sure seems to think so, but and I'm kind of making this up a little bit, so this is just my interpretation of it, and this might be me looking for a more positive reaction to this in general. There might be a little bit of cope in this. This is just full disclosure. I've thought about it, and I've thought that this and the way it ends ultimately is a showing to me of how they're, even with their suicide, they were letting their stuff control them.
Yeah, and that's
Because
why
they
before they were getting rid of all of it.
like they thought like it was freeing and it was going to be good and it was going to get them to the end and they could finally find that joy. But realistically, they made this decision because they couldn't figure out any other way to get out of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They literally could not live without it, and that's not like a healthy freeing action. That is just a complete and total enslavement of the mind to your stuff, saying I will die rather than lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that's a more interesting topic, because clearly I have shit, right. So this is real. The consumerism is true. It's a real thing. I think you just, by being alive in certain countries, you are consumerist. It's just life. And I think it's worth talking about the rejection of it and what that looks like. I think this is such a harsh version of the rejection of it that it's really hard to connect to on that level. Like you're like I like the message, but also I can't like this message. There's not a chance in hell I can like this message. This is too much. This is too far. And
Very
so maybe by
excessive.
pulling
Yeah.
by pulling it back a second, it's like, okay, I can find some love here. I've ranted a lot, Willie. I'll let you go. I had to get some of that off my chest.
Well, I was gonna say that was part of the scene. I kind of when we got to that point of them destroying the stuff, I think that's when I recognized it was inevitable they were gonna commit suicide. And for me, like I'm not a very consumerist person. I like obviously like purchasing things, and I don't say this like as like an elitist way, but like I literally like I get stressed out when I have too many things. Like I'm so minimalist to a fault at times that like I'll just get rid of things even if I could use them because I just hate being around stuff. It like just freaks me out at times. I don't really know why that is. So that scene and all the destruction of things just didn't feel cathartic to me. It just felt like comical and amusing. Um, I think what kind of and the more I thought about this, obviously, and with the end, it makes sense too. But like leading up to the film, obviously, the first 2/3, I don't really know where this is going. But then once we get into the point where they're making their decisions to move, and then like it's clear they're not actually moving when she's writing the letter to her parents, and then they're going to take their own lives and uh, create some chaos and destruction before that. It still didn't really stick out to me what their emotional distress stemmed from. And obviously there's clues with the routine and just the day by day life and feeling stuck and depressed and having suicidal ideation develop from that. But there was the complete lack of emotional depth in the film, or like discussion of emotions, stood out because there was, I guess, a subplot in a way of her brother's reaction to her mother's death, and him being hospitalized, him not being able to work, and this strong sense of grief that he carried with him, and he was able to eventually like emotionally, process during the dinner table scene, and like he was able to overcome that. It felt like grief and perhaps guilt was such an underlying feeling throughout this film that like at first I felt like they were in this depressive state because they had some unresolved guilt related to the mother's death. And that emotional reaction just stood out because there was so much else. There's so little going on in the film, but I felt like the mother's death meant more to the overall meaning of the film. And it got to the point where I was like creating this narrative in my head of like, okay, there's something that hasn't been revealed. Like maybe, and this was just me like creating things in my mind, but like, okay, so maybe like earlier in 1985 or 86, like they were driving around with the grandma, and obviously there was scenes of cars. There was a car accident that brought out an emotional reaction in her. So it's like, okay, maybe they're like we're driving with the grandma, and then like the little girl like wanted to run in the house and play with her toys, and then they left the grandma in the car, and she like died in the hot car, and they have this overwhelming guilt, and that's why all the family members are like have a shared feeling of guilt and trauma associated with this traumatic death or event, and like that's why they all have this feeling of like needing to like kill themselves because they can't get over it. I felt like the grief and perhaps the guilt that came from the grandma's death hung over the film, and then they just kind of dropped that. Obviously, like there's the connection between them not feeling emotions and not like processing it, and then we see the brother getting out of that feeling, and then like them still. It felt like they're because we know so little about these characters. It's hard for me because at times like I really did like that it's so like it's not telling you what to feel, it's just showing you. But the lack of emotional attachment from like anything prior to their feelings of a depressive state just like really took me out of the film, and I just didn't feel connection when they do finally decide to kill themselves. So it's like I don't really know why you're doing this, and it's like it's hard. It's hard because like I'm also ranting here, but I do feel like if there was some semblance of like a backstory behind, like if we could see scenes of the little girl when she's like 3 or 4 years old and she actually is happy, and then see like her transformation into this like depressive state, and the parents like some contrast, just the lack of juxtaposition between the before and the current and then the after. I mean, maybe there was no happiness before, but like just the lack of it just did take me out of any emotional attachment to the events.
No, and I understand that. Here's my thought on the guilt behind it all, because I think you may be on something there. But here's the darker version of it. I think that if I had to guess, they do have a lot of guilt around the mother's death, but the guilt isn't in how she died. The guilt is in the fact that they can't feel anything that she died.
Yeah,
And it's like it exists there and is eating away at them on the inside, but it still can't force the feeling.
it's yeah, and that kind of plays into the overall theme of the film that I started to like think about as I processed it after watching it. It was like there's so many components going into their feelings of alienation and why they're in this depressive state, and it's very complex, but it's also like not, it's just kind of like society as a whole, and you know, showing emotions and like consumerism, all these things. So it is very complex, but it is very like simple as well.
Yeah, I think like one of the scenes that I love that you kind of like is easy to like just move over, right? Is when Georg, however they say his name in Austria, sorry Austrians, um, they when he is at his job and the guy who's been gone forever because I think he either lost his wife or he's been really sick or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He comes back and all of his stuff is gone, right? Like a clear like kind of overstep on George's part, and he forgets to ask him how he is at first, which is red flag number one. But second flag is he says, "How are you doing?" to a man who clearly is not doing well. And he looks at him and in a pretty convincing tone says, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm fine. It's good." And you're just like, holy shit, man, this guy just like had a major illness or lost someone he loved, and I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. That's not the point. The point is he can't even say like, I'm doing terrible. All my stuff is gone. I think I've been fired and I've lost everything. Instead, he looks and goes out, I'm good. I'm fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
I won't even let myself feel this. Not to you, someone who I've worked with for years and years and years.
yeah. It was also I like that kind of. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but like that scene is also towards the end of the film where the George has kind of already made the decision or is leading to the decision to kill himself. Where like even like maybe a younger version of him would have like felt guilt for getting rid of this guy's stuff because like I'm not going to think about like whatever things are going on in your family, but I would feel bad if I like got rid of your stuff because those are your material possessions. This is your self-worth. But even that is just like, oh, it's gone. Like just complete detachment from any social norms in a sense.
Right, right. And then the fact that this is the first thing he asked about, it's not like, hey, do I still have a job here? Or like, or who's in charge? What's been going on? He just goes, where's my stuff? And it's all he cares about, yeah, and then we see George completely just lose it after that. Like that and the car wreck are the two defining moments for me of when you like see the decision get kind of like cemented,
Mm-hmm.
because the car wreck shakes something up in them. I think like for me, car wrecks in films either usually are like visceral or they represent just absolutely needless death.
Mm-hmm. Or
And
like
I
a
think
shift. Yeah.
yeah, and this one works for me because it's like it's such a needless death based on just getting around in your thing, probably to do the stuff to keep up your other things. And the pop music's playing, just
Mm-hmm.
neutering the emotion of the scene because it's such a dark scene with the bodies in the stretcher, and it's just happy music's on the radio though. You can bop along to it if you're into those sort of '80s ballads.
I am.
Yeah, the the emotions. I think like I guess where I come out from this movie is that it just sat with me in a lot of different ways. And all those scenes that like you think nothing is happening, they end up meaning so much more because I think it just connects you to the scenes that are going to come.
Just in kind of a build up way. I think having sat with it, I appreciate that more. And again, I like how this does a unique take of, again, very much not telling you anything, just kind of depicting. So not even just like showing, but like just depicting, because it's not showing you like it's not giving you clues visually. I mean, obviously there's scenes like when he's getting the tools ready, like oh fuck, what's going to happen? But like it really is just depicting us in a slice of life kind of way. And meanwhile, my mind's still like kind of on the Hollywood movie track of like, oh, there's a car accident, and now the mom's showing emotion. Did her mom die in a car accident? Like this is where my mind's going, like trying to find some meaning and some substance. And sometimes like really quality films and filmmaking, you don't need substance. I mean, David Lynch is one of my all-time favorite directors. He's got a lot of like substance for sure, but it's not like there's not always meaning attached. There's not assigned meaning, and I think it's refreshing at times to see films that just don't have assigned meaning and let interpretation up to the audience, but also like depict things that don't have interpretation really at all. Like you can talk about them, but like it's really just depicting. You know, if there's no deeper message, it's nothing. It's not like a outside perspective, like that knows more than the audience. It's like up behind the curtain as the Wizard of Oz, but like actually just like depicting and not like having a deeper message. I think is refreshing.
Right. In this movie, I feel like it inherently has to be that, right? Because so if you not only commit suicide with a young child involved, but you also destroy everything that you have so no one else can have it, it's clear that the suicide is related to the society around them and the rejection of it. However, society around them and the rejection of it is such a broad term that you can almost apply any meaning that you want of the current society. And you'd be like, well, they hated that part and that's why they did it, or they hated this part and that's why they did it, or this part destroyed them and that's why they did it. You know, like that, leaving that up to interpretation just, I think, allows for a lot of different versions of connection to the film.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, especially like reflecting on it more. I think that it did just kind of take me out of it at times, just the repetition, and I wouldn't even say I was bored at times. It was because I was still engaged because there's still a mystery involved, but it did feel a little pretentious and excessive at times to me personally. And I say that simply because of not having really any established emotional connection or like relation to any of the characters. Like I mentioned, like I think the scene that I related to the most was like being a child in the back seat and your mom's crying and you have no idea why, but it's not explained or talked about. And also like I related to parts from a child's perspective of like intense emotions, not knowing what's going on, and then like also like being up like late at night, not being able to sleep, and like just like feeling this like sense of like depressive state or things like just kind of like that child like I guess what it felt like to be a child experiencing depression, but like but not having like a greater societal meaning attached to it. And obviously the film is like talking about societal meaning and how it leads to these states, but I think what I took the most out of it when I related to the characters the most was just the little girl's interpretation and like not knowing why all these feelings are existing but like still feeling them. So when it did have scenes from her perspective, I think that's when I was like actually like engrossed in the outcome of the characters. But at times besides that, it just was like there's a lot going on, and this is kind of comical to me.
See, that's fair. That's fair. I couldn't get any funny out of it for me, but like I get what you're saying. The and we'll talk about the next section will be, I think, a little similar because a lot of these things are wrapped up in the way that this is presented. Again, just once they are actually in the method of suicide, they actually start showing emotions, like the mom smashing the bottles and crying, or the dad throwing up. It's like it's just crazy because it's like once you've made this crazy risk taking act, and that is the emotions, but now the act is final, and they've made such a crazy one. It's so sad to me because it's like if you could have just found a way to tap into this before you got to this point, you'd probably be so much healthier, even if it would look so much more unhealthy.
Yeah, and I do appreciate the obviously the buildup of in the end. Like I didn't feel like it was always fully warranted, but what I do appreciate is that the film did stick the landing in terms of like not having the actors or the emotions go over the top. Like their stoic nature, even though it overcame them after they committed these acts, and there was like a reprieve from this like facade basically. They didn't like go over the top. Like the mom is obviously upset that her daughter's dead and she's doing this, but she wasn't just like screaming like "oh my god" or like complete like flip out. She was still consistent in her character, and particularly with the dad, like you can see the horrors on his face, but he's not conveying that emotion. And I think that if the suicide scene had been needlessly graphic or over the top, or like the characters had regret about what they did, it would have taken me way far out of it. I think the consistency with the execution did work really well. It felt like that made sense. That stuck the landing for me really well.
So let me ask you, in just to kind of wrap up this section in a simple way, if you walked away from this movie with one lesson or one idea, what would it be?
I think that it's hard for me to like articulate this without like sounding obvious or like coming across in a way that's like almost sounds like therapy speak or something because I don't want to do that. But like genuinely just like surrounding yourself in an environment where you can be around vulnerability. I think vulnerability is what I took away from this, and like how society and learned behaviors and gender norms or like class norms or everything just really like restricts vulnerability in society. I mean, look at like social media and like our mass surveillance state. Like we can't be alone. We can't be like unfiltered and raw in our emotions and our experiences. And that stifling of vulnerability in society is what leads to just big outbreaks of like suicide or like maybe at times like mass violence. There's this lack of vulnerability and an inability to express what's inside in like in a healthy way before it just comes out in destruction. So I think that the lesson about vulnerability that really stands out to me is that like particularly in the home, like even if you suffer from depression or you don't feel like confident in yourself, like at least having some semblance of security in your life, even if it's just like I don't know, a therapist or like an animal or like something where you can be vulnerable. That's what society needs in order to be human. And like without that vulnerability, this is what happens.
Yeah, this is why you hear so many commercials for better health. I swear to God, man, it's because someone needs a place to at least just say it out loud at some point, right? For me, it's very similar. Um, I learned from growing up that the middle class version of life, where you hide all of your bad things, is just it's so incredibly toxic. Like as a kid in that situation, I learned so little about how life actually operated and had to teach myself so many things because everyone was too afraid to tell me as a kid in their family like what things worked and how things were and how like the real life was. I just had to learn from Ernest Goes to Camp, and that's not a good. I love that movie. It's not a good life training
Did
video,
you
you know.
did you grow up watching Ernest as well? Because I was an Ernest kid. I don't
Oh
know
yeah,
why.
oh yeah.
Ernest Scared
I
Stupid.
had the DVD around here somewhere actually because my kids watch it now too.
When I was like
This is,
7 or 8 years old, my mom and I found a VHS copy of Ernest Scared Stupid in the Walmart like 99-cent bin, and I was so elated. I still remember.
Ernest Scared Stupid was terrifying also as a little
It
kid, and
was,
then
yeah.
at some point it flips over and it's not so bad, but it was terrifying as a little kid. My chief lesson from this is just it's two things. It's one, don't sweat what society tells you. Like as much as you can, remember the society doesn't have your back. And it's not healthy to live always comparing yourself to someone else or always worrying about how you compare to someone else, because I think this sort of like you're exactly right with the vulnerability being the answer there, right? Not having vulnerability is just about how you stack up against other people.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as you can throw that away and not care about it, you're so much healthier. Um it just encapsulated the middle class for me, and I don't want to restate what you said because you said it in a very well spoken way, Willie. Like you hit it exactly. I think it's just that they weren't able to show any vulnerabilities. Their wall was always up, and at some point, if your wall's up for too long, um, what is it? You can't be stone hearted all the time, otherwise your heart turns to stone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you really have to practice this ability to like stop caring and let people in, and just there's not shame in existing in this way we do, because even the people who don't show it do. And in social media, can you imagine this family with social media, man? They would be posting all those breakfasts, they'd be posting all that stuff they did, and their life would look fucking golden.
One thing that was really refreshing about this movie, and I think it was partly like being from a different country in the 80s, but I feel like if this movie had come out today, there would have been like some scenes of contrast. And like I said, I wanted more contrast, but not in this way. I feel like there would have been scenes of like them with their rich friends and like putting on a show, and like any movie that like tries to demonstrate like feeling alienated in society when you're in this middle class or higher class environment always has scenes of like it's like we know that you're expected to put on a facade. Like you don't have to show it. Like we know just from like how they arrange breakfast and the cars they drive, we know that this family is expected to look perfect. Like we don't have to like show that. So I do appreciate the film just like expecting the audience to know that instead of like going out of its way to like add scenes of that kind of contrast.
Right, right. Okay, let's move on to our next scene, or our next little bit here. This is the artistry of the seventh continent. So, Igor, will you please take us to our next scene?
Yes.
And yeah, I'm sorry if you hear that a lot. This is just, I love that thing too much. It's going to be hanging around for a while. So, the artistry of the seventh continent is covered a lot in the human stuff because there's no way to untwine those things. This movie is about giving you an emotion. It doesn't have a lot of fancy stuff going on otherwise. One thing I do want to talk about is and we've mentioned this before, is I think like the change in camera techniques through the 3 days was done so particularly well that and me and Willie may have a disagreement with the jump cuts and the harsh cuts and everything, because I think like the harsh cuts and the jump cuts for me represented the lack of reason in it. You know, it's just like I'm doing these things because this is routine, not because there's any thought process put into it. So you jump cut your life essentially, you know. The close up on the hands and the stuff and the things that are happening. So that people are buying groceries, but it's just scan, 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 scan. Here's hand, here's money, here's cashier. Okay, see you later. I'm sitting in the car wash. We don't talk. No one talks because we don't have anything to talk about. Because if we talked to each other about things, that we might admit that we have thoughts and feelings that are different than what you're supposed to have, you know. And all of the free time, all of that space is filled up with just radio about awful things that are happening. And my copy of the film Criterion didn't have subtitles for all the radio bits, so I didn't catch all of it.
I didn't have it either, and I had enough though that I got what it was conveying. Especially them waking up to this. That was the consistency there.
Them waking up to it, and I think like mine did mention like it was talking about hostages being taken by a group from Israel, which but so I just thought like the techniques used in storytelling and like the slow gradual build of this over time, because you know it starts on the close-ups and then it moves a little bit further away, but that's when we see them cracking. Suddenly we're seeing some emotions from them, but we're starting to see their faces now too. It's not just about the objects. It's now a little bit about the people, but they're not saying what's on their mind. We just know it's there because we can see them finally.
Yeah, and especially I think it was subtle, but like I did like that it changed the camera. Some of the camera work changed as you know the different chapters progressed, because it did kind of add some variety to the excessiveness of the routine. You know, like at least we're shooting things in a different way, or like showing different angles of things, and we're actually getting more and more depictions of the people in the center of the story. And I think it was subtle, but like I did catch that a few times. I think another piece is I like even the car wash sequences. Obviously, there was different things going on depending on when they were in there, but like they did shoot parts of the car differently, and like even like when they were opening the garage and the car was coming out, like it was shot like a little bit differently each time, which it definitely like it was a nice touch.
Then you mentioned the music, right? So Michael Haneke uses this diegetic sound, which I did not know the word before looking it up. So full disclosure, which is just the music only comes from what the characters are listening to. There is no music that is inserted into the movie. It is quiet other than when the music shows up. And what I loved is that every single time they listened to music or they turned on the TV, it was always times when emotions could actually come out. It was like they were using the TV or using the music as a shield to stop emotions from entering their sphere. It was like, okay, some bad could happen here. Let's crank that music up so we can't even talk to each other.
Yeah.
Let's turn on the TV and we have some crazy kind of like introspective talk happening. Let's just not pay attention. We're gonna watch this game show instead. No one will even respond to this dude as he's talking about what his mom might have thought, like in these harsh moments.
Away from that, like human centered emotion at least.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm weird, but there was a scene before the brother started crying when they were just like at the dinner table eating, and like when I grew up, like my family would like eat and watch TV on TV trays, and oftentimes like with my partner, we'll just like we've been together a long time, so oftentimes we'll just like be on our phone or like reading or doing our own thing while we eat. And during that dinner table scene, I was like, I've never like sat with my loved ones and ate and just blasted music and not talked. That kind of sounds nice. I wouldn't mind doing that sometime instead of just on my phone.
It's so funny, just the no talking part, right? Because like I could totally have been in those dinner scenes where it's like, yeah, you're sitting with your family and you don't really have a lot to connect on because no one knows about each other really. We're all doing our own things. But the blasting music makes it so much more awkward for me in that idea. With that
Yeah.
said, like I have kids that haven't and maybe will never sit at a dinner table in that same way because just what's the purpose, honestly?
Mm-hmm.
Like if we're hanging out, we're doing something together, it's way better than if we're just sitting at a dinner table staring at each other.
Yeah, you get that
But we'll
connection.
watch music videos or something, so it's really not that different, I guess.
Yeah, I did actually. I also had a similar experience, like when they were sitting in the dark watching music videos, and she was like laying on her parents. Like I remember, like I grew up like around music, in music videos, so like I have memories of doing the same thing, just like sitting in the living room watching music videos with my parents. It was funny. It was like, oh, this is like a very stark, disturbing scene, but like there's some warmth here. I relate to that.
And that's the beauty of it is like again, music was used in that scene where the really terrible thing is happening. You're like watching Meatloaf crone over whatever, and you're just watching like what would be almost the worst thing you could ever imagine as a fan. Like as a dad, if that was I don't even want to talk about that. But it's just it looks warm, and this is the first time you see the music video and the music used in a way that's actually connecting them because they all look like they're actually paying attention in a way, and like they're hanging out, they're being sweet with each other. Like I think like the dad is sitting with the little girl and they're actually close to each other and they look like they care about each other for the first time in that whole
Yeah,
entire freaking film
yeah.
you know
It it's funny. The music too, like I really like the term you used. I'd also not really been familiar with. What was it?
Diegetic.
Diegetic, and I think that was a great use because if there was like a soundtrack in this film, like even a score, it's like that would have been, this whole movie is like the Haneke just like depicting. He's not trying to tell us anything, and that score like would have been like that. On the present narrator would taking me out of it. So I really like that it was just focused on the characters. Um, and I just in general outside of the film completely, I really like the music. Like I always really liked like 80s kind of like Euro synth pop, and the song that the power of love that plays when they first start drinking the milk. I think it's covered by Celine Dion. I'm not sure who was doing the original there, but I like that song a lot. I even like Meatloaf. I like the 80s like power ballads and all that. It was good. I enjoyed like all the music in this.
I'm so happy to hear that because when I was watching it, I was like, "Oh my god, I can't imagine dying to this song." Like,
That's a whole other story, but
like watching Meatloaf just looking all sweaty up there, just singing this power ballad at you. I'd be like, "Oh." I wonder if this is Meatloaf's least favorite movie that he ever appeared in. Like if you
he's
could
been in
like,
some pretty bad movies, I think. So I don't know about that.
yeah, no, this one's a good one, but I can't imagine that he loved this. He's like, "Oh, I get to be on the scene where the cure." Oh,
Oh no.
okay. Like, is it ironic? No. Oh, I don't
I
know
think
that that's better.
those last two music video scenes, and maybe this is intentional, maybe not, but like the other music which I enjoyed is like in scenes where there's like a contrast because the music's happy and upbeat, and there's like a car wreck or this emotionally distraught brother. But in those scenes where they're watching the music videos and they finally like kind of accepted what's going to happen, like as cheesy as some of those songs are, they are extremely vulnerable. Like they are really just like about like I mean, Meatloaf's is grown, overweight man sweating on stage, but he's like pouring his heart out and like being so open and like completely contrasting anything that any of these family members have ever done. So it is kind of funny, just like that, that those scenes in particular, those music choices in particular, in those scenes when the families kind of come out of their destruction, I think was it worked a lot better than if it was just another happy like poppy song.
I agree with you. I think that's a good point. Because the pop music is like it's a mood setter, right? It's not it doesn't aid the mood, it sets the mood. It is overpowering, it's loud, and it's so happy and danceable that like you can't imagine these terrible things that they're witnessing at these times. Or not even terrible things. Like brother crying is not a terrible thing. That's the thing that should be
So
okay.
different than anything they allow in the house usually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you're watching these just sappy songs. But sappy is a word that I don't think you could attribute to any other part of their actions at all prior to that. So sappy is a big change.
Yeah.
I liked some of the photography. I won't say that there was a ton of shots that really stood out because I think it was all very stylized to a point where you're not getting any individual huge standouts. But I did think when, and this is just a small little bit, when George goes to pick up Anna, Anna in the rain when it's outside and it's raining really hard.
He's honking the horn.
That shot is so pretty to me. Like I just was watching it, I'm like, this is a great looking night shot. And it's got this little bit of tension because he's just stopped in the middle of the road, and you're waiting for her to pop out, and it's the clearly fake downpouring of rain that doesn't exist anywhere in the world. And he's waiting for her, and it just looks so good to me. And I don't know what it was about that scene, but something just stood out to me. I was like, this is pretty. This is a good one.
I liked I can't think of a specific because there's a few shots because there's a lot of obviously repetitive shots. Any of the shots like with them in the front of the fish tank because the fish tank looks so cool was really cool. I think there were some scenes where either Ava or Anna is like feeding the fish and you just see like them and they're like standing up there and it's like they're themselves, but then there's also the fish tank and it looks really cool. I like those scenes.
Also, I suppose I should mention the scene they used for Australia, the picture they used for Australia of like what looked like an alien beach. In the special, in the special features, it was 3 images laid over each other. So you can notice like on one side there's kind of a ghosting thing happening on. I don't think they did that on purpose. I think that was just what was going on. But good choice because it made Australia this like alien world almost. It was like you're never going to go there. You're not going to be able to see that. You guys already know that. Like you can dream about it, but it's so unachievable for you where you're at currently that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And and it also like the very opening besides the car wash is like when it shows the poster for Australia from the travel agency, and it's like it's depicted as like this very over the top kind of mythical location. It's not a traditional travel agency ad. It almost looks like heavenly, if I recall correctly. It's like just this big thing. It's not like images of kangaroos or anything. It's just like Australia. So that was interesting, kind of call back to that.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, for a movie where little happened, personally, I was into it the whole time. So I thought the shots, the way the music worked, the acting was, I agree with you, just pretty phenomenal across the board. And yeah, I also think, you could call it underacting, but that's exactly what you need it.
Exactly.
If any of these guys showed emotions at any time, it would have broken the whole film. And they managed to not do that during important scenes where they should not do that.
Yeah, this film reminded me a bit of, and I'm going to be very careful not to give any spoilers because I know you haven't seen it, but this film reminded me a lot of I Saw the TV Glow, and there's also very similar themes of alienation in that movie that's depicted that I can't personally relate to, but really stuck with me and is extremely visceral. And it's another movie that I like has really stuck with me in the similar way this one has for you. But there's a big criticism of the lead performance in that film by Justice Smith is that he's just very monotone and like not showing emotion and it's distracting, but like he portrays that character so perfectly in my opinion. It's one of my favorite performances of the past few years. And there's themes of the movie as well, but also just like the acting performances. I was watching this. It's like it reminds me of his performance because it's so subtle, but it needs to be because otherwise it will take you out of the film. This character is so they're feeling so much emotional turmoil, but if you go out of that, like the actors show that outside of verbal expressions, it would just take away so much. And I like that consistency. All the actors, especially like I have to shout out the child actress because it's so much more difficult for a child to portray this so well. It was great.
Oh my gosh, man. The child actress broke my heart with how realistically she portrayed what would have been happening in these scenes. Mm-hmm. She had just amazing eyes.
Yeah.
Like her eyes were so like deceptively emotive. You know what I mean? Like she could keep her face pretty steely, and yet her eyes said everything. They said there's so much more going on underneath what you're seeing here.
I like that they. I mean, I wonder if obviously the scene of the optometrist and that being a big subplot or whatever you want to call it, and then like in the beginning of the as we get to know her character, like we're only seeing her eyes, like in the scene of the school teacher, and then like when her mom slaps her, like it's not a long shot or like even a mid shot of them just like in the room together. It's just like them talking, and you can just see her face, and like her eyes are, throughout the film doing so much of the acting, but also like it's clear that that's a focal point of her character is just to focus on the eyes.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't say for sure that it's on purpose, but it would make a lot of sense to me if it was his way of drawing attention to the eyes and being like, look, the eyes are the one thing that's going to actually tell you what's happening here, because they're never going to say it, and they're never going to break this facade that they've got built up, but their eyes can't lie the way they need them to,
Yeah.
especially not hers, because she hasn't had the years of conditioning quite yet.
Yeah.
But watching her do anything kid related hurt so bad, because it was really, really well done. Like her grabbing the stuffy, her asking for the lights to be turned on at night. Like this isn't just like tropes. This is just 5-year-olds, man. Like they exist this way, and she did a great job acting. I don't know how old she was, but it wouldn't shock me if she was actually like 5 or 6.
I love the scene too where it's just her hands and she's eating the cereal, and she takes like 5 bites. Oh, I'm full. It's just
Yeah, like cornflakes. Yeah. Like, come on, what are
yeah.
you doing?
Yeah.
It's also very really like I need you to eat more before you leave. And like I don't want to. I don't need to. Okay, so to kind of wrap up this section, I'll ask this question here. So, Willie, what's the shot or moment you'll remember a year from now?
Probably the two. I guess one's way darker than the other, but the two scenes of the family in the dark watching TV, for the actual like emotional camaraderie between the family when they're watching the music videos before they kill themselves, and then when the dad is sitting in the dark and his family's dead around him and his life flashes before his eyes. Can't really say why those two have stuck with me the most. Obviously, given the context, it makes sense, but um, I think a lot of his film is dark as it is. A lot of it does take place in the daytime when they're shopping or at work or getting ready for school, and even when they're like in rooms like getting ready for bed, the light's still on. There's a lot of like lit films, even when they're in the car and they're driving in the dark. Like, but in those scenes, like you can't really see their faces, but you can just tell by their posture of like what's going on in the scene, and whether it be like love and connection or like disturbing destruction that happened, and especially with the sun coming up in the scene when he actually kills himself. I don't know, those two sequences just stood out to me in the film more than other scenes, just in how like maybe unique they were.
No, that's I think fair answers both ways. For me, I'm feeling the child saying this milk is bitter. I think that one just like sits in my head.
Yeah.
For obviously like, emotional connection reasons. Again, I got a 6-year-old. This kid's 5. It's too close. It's too close. It hit so close to home. It hurt. For the pure artistry of it, I think the scene in the car when they're looking at the bodies and the pop music is playing was a particularly powerful scene in a movie that hadn't had particularly powerful scenes up to that point.
Yeah.
And that juxtaposition of we're witnessing this really awful thing that has happened to these people for almost no reason, but we're also listening to dance music and no one is reacting basically in any way emotionally that we can see on the front of it. It was a good tone change right there. I was like, okay, so we've witnessed the bad thing.
Yeah.
Really well done, in my opinion. So those are probably the two. And I know I said shot or moment. We gave 2 moments each. That's okay. That's life. So moving right along here, we get to go to our next thing. So Igor, take us to the 5 things you likely did not know about the 7th continent. Yes, master. I'll go ahead and start off here. Since I chose the movie, the first fun in this movie is always going to be with quotes. I'm just going to be real with you. Originally, Michael Haneke had wrote a narration that started with the suicide, and then it was punctuated with flashbacks from the family's activities. Now, if you can imagine this movie, imagine how absolutely different this movie is. Because even he agreed, and after 6 weeks, he decided he had to refuse that completely because the flashbacks would then make it feel like explanations for the suicide,
which is not.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't intend for the movie ever to attempt to explain the suicide in full. He wanted the viewers to understand that and figure it out for themselves. Which, it is kind of a mean thing to do as a director, but also we talk about art a lot. You should let your audience be involved in the art, and there's no better way than making them decide the whole thing. if can you imagine this movie with a narration over a suicide like that at the beginning? It just wouldn't work. I can't imagine. It's like that idea. I'm so happy you scrapped it, but crazy that's what
literally would have been so bad, like on so many levels, because it, as conflicted as I am about like how the climax, if I felt like it paid off or not for my investment, emotionally at least. Like if I had known how it ended and then I was like, sitting through it, like it would have been really, really frustrating.
So they commit suicide. Oh, and they did nothing for the next 90 minutes?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Those Austrians, man.
Yeah.
My little fun fact. So I briefly touched on this, but Haneke, so he correctly predicted before the premiere of the film that the two scenes involving the flushing of money and the destruction of the fish tank would cause the most distress among viewers and critics. And I couldn't find an exact like interview source for this, but I saw it cited a couple times of like with different interviews where he's mentioned this, that he was correct and that there was like a lot of the criticism and some widespread walkouts during the premiere did come from those scenes specifically during the fish tank destruction sequence, and then the flushing of money. And apparently, like the flushing of money was like a really big criticism in Austrian media at the time, from some at least. And I wonder if that like kind of coincides with the end of the Cold War, if there's like some political implications where like when showing like destroying money at that time in particular was particularly heinous. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine him doing that scene during like McCarthyism in the U.S.? He'd definitely be blacklisted immediately. They'd be like, "You commie, get out of here."
Yeah.
That, like I said, it was weird, that money scene. I got like a reaction that was against my will. I didn't want to care about it, and I still felt like I did a little bit. I was like, it's kind of wild. What in the world?
I thought the currency was pretty. I hadn't seen all of it, but I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Who's that guy?
Right. And it's also with how much everything cost, it was very confusing to figure out what the actual US dollar value of that was. Not that that matters, but I tried,
Well, there's a scene also, like I remember with the gas tank filling up, and I was thinking like, oh, I wonder if that would was that a lot? I don't know.
Right. You can't tell. My third fact here, and of course I had to pay attention to these things because I recognized a couple of these right away. I worked at a record store, right? So as they're destroying records, I'm like, what did we lose here? Because they were very clearly actually destroying records. I don't know if the sound effect was real. That might have been added in later, but they were destroying the covers at the very least. The records destroyed by the family in order of appearance. First, we had Fleetwood Mac's Tango in Paris. That's one I saw. Penguin Cafe Orchestra. Don't know. Signs of Life. Second. The Golden Palominos. Visions of Excess. Then Jerry Rafferty's Night Owl. Jerry Rafferty's Night Owl, of course, showed up at the record store in California that I worked at so many times. It was crazy. When I saw that, I was like, oh no. They are normal people. IQ's Namzamo, and then Loredana Berte's Jazz. So there it is. If you've been looking for some of those movies very vehemently and you haven't been able to find them for good prices, I can tell you why. It's because Michael Haneke destroyed them. Send him a message.
I was gonna say I don't really know a lot of Jerry Rafferty's catalog, but I love Right Down the Line. That's a great song. I like his voice a lot. This is an absurd hot take that I hope just gets buried in this video, but I love Fleetwood Mac. I mean, I'm not like a huge fan, but I really do like a lot of their music. And Rumors is a great album, but I think the Tango of a Night album and their 80s era is just as good. I hate to say it. Everywhere is such a great song. Little Lies, like I really like 80s era Fleetwood Mac, and I think it holds up to 70s era Rumors I'm sorry. I really when I didn't catch that album being destroyed, but I was like, they have good taste. Now that you mention that.
That's fair. I didn't I don't I never really listened to a lot of Fleetwood Mac. For some reason my mom hated Stevie Nicks and it just like got passed down, and I couldn't tell you why to this day. But
That
like
feels,
there's
feels
like
like the antithesis of every mom. Every mom, yeah.
I know. Like she's like, oh, Stevie Nicks, she stinks. It's probably because at some point she like showed backbone somewhere. I don't know. That might not be fair. Uh,
My next little fun fact here. So this film is film one of three in an unofficial trilogy from Haneke. So his first three films, I guess, are a quote unquote unofficial trilogy. The other two are, where did I write it down here? Benny's Video, his second feature film, and then 71 Fragments of a Chronology of Chance, which is his third feature film. And I didn't look up the plots, so I didn't want to know the full synopsis in case I decide to get into these. But I did look up kind of the basic themes, and a lot of the characters share the same names, even though they're different characters. And the films seem to deal with alienation and like suicidal or homicidal ideation that stems from that. So that even though the characters are different, the names and the themes of the film seem to have like some connection. So that's unofficial trilogy.
yeah, and if you are interested in this, actually, the version of the Seventh Continent that Criterion sells is the one I watched here. It comes in the
Oh,
trilogy format with all three of those films.
oh, cool. Okay, I didn't
Yeah, I
catch
think they call it the Glacial Trilogy.
that. Hmm.
For I don't really know exactly why, but yeah. So I haven't watched the other two. I don't know when I will. I'm thinking I'm going to wait on that for a minute. Uh, but I just assumed it'd be good. I mean, when I heard about Michael Haneke for the first time, it was that like this guy's incredibly good at what he does, but you're gonna hate it. And
I oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say it feels right.
I really am intrigued. I read like some of the basic, like I said, I didn't read synopsis, but I read some of the basic plots of his films, and the film Cachet really stands out to me as intriguing. That's I think that if I catch another one of his movies, I also have not seen Amour yet. That was my first introduction to him, just because that was really big at the Oscars and award shows when I was in high school. But Cachet, the plot of that sounds very interesting. I might check that out.
Yeah, and I did love Funny Games, but it's a very different movie than these. Like Funny Games feels more like a standard actual movie. You can follow along. Like it fits in with Western vibes pretty well.
And he the shot for shot remake is also directed by him. Is that right?
He just did it so he could actually get an American release. And that's a great movie for him to do an American release of. Like that makes sense.
Slasher kind of, yeah. And the one of the I think I haven't seen it, but I think one of the killers in that movie is an actor Brandy Corbett, and he actually went on to become a director, and he directed The Brutalist.
Oh, oh, cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, that's a neat little fact. I like that. No,
bonus fact.
yeah. I am excited to watch Benny's video because I think that's also pretty relevant to today. Like the idea that you're like making these videos and then you become like fascinated or obsessed by it or in some way. And of course, I haven't watched it, so ignore me if I'm wrong about that. But the idea is interesting.
Yeah, it sounds cool.
um, okay, last fun fact. Last final is pretty redundant, isn't it? So the seventh continent does not refer to Australia, despite the fact that we see Australia in the film a bunch of times, and it would make a lot of sense that the seventh continent means Australia, but it does not.
Hmm.
Instead, it seems to refer to a Shakespearean quote talking about the unknown continent, death.
Hmm.
The quote is from Hamlet. The dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns, right? And the idea is that death is the seventh continent because they can't actually go to Australia, and what they're seeing is an alien version, but they are going to travel to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
This thing, they're going to death. So the seventh continent is therefore a reference to Hamlet, which may have made a lot more sense if you're from a European country that studies things that are smart like Shakespeare, and
Or if
not like you're from
in
America
Shakespeare,
and you can't figure that out. You're like, that's not right. There ain't no continent. It's death. That's
well,
stupid.
in Shakespeare's era, did people discovered Antarctica yet? I don't know if that's been discovered. So maybe there only was six continents, and they're like death is at the bottom of the globe, or not the well, not the globe, the map.
I okay. I don't know actually because Shakespeare definitely wasn't in the 1800s. He was in the 1600s, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know.
Huh.
It's a great question. I just thought that was interesting because you totally go throughout it and it's like this has got to be about Australia, the seventh continent, and it just turns out that's a false flag operation happening in front of us. Okay, so Igor, take us to our final section.
Yes, master.
How does this movie stay with you after the credits roll? And this is a pretty simple question. Willie, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Well, think about this. You go first.
Okay. So how this movie stays with me after the credits roll. First off, the immediate reaction was an incredible sadness. I think it hit me in such a way where you start questioning things and like, is this who I am? Is this the person that I am? Am I just stuck in a routine? And it like really gets you to like do some intrinsic questioning, and that's hard. So like there's two immediate thoughts, and it was one, I hate this movie. It's mean, and that's the defensive version of yourself. And two, it's actually getting me to look at something and think about what I'm thinking. Think about something that is like related to the humanity, to my life, to my place in this world. And as a piece of art, I immediately can turn around and say that I thought it was exceptionally well done, and it sat with me in a way that I haven't really been able to stop thinking about what that means in relation to how I operate. And to have a piece of art hit me in a way that makes me think about that and for long periods of time is increasingly rare. So although I can't tell you that I love this movie because that's not the right emotion, I can tell you that I really greatly respect what happened and what I saw.
That's well said. I think my initial gut take is like, what a fucking mammoth of the debut feature to make. Like, holy shit! Like, this is your first movie. That is insane. Not just like from a, I mean, it's both positively and negatively, but like the audacity to make this, but like just the technical skill and the bravery, I guess, if you want to call it, like, just to have this be your first entrance into, you know, movie filmmaking is pretty crazy. Um, and maybe this is just maybe it piques my interest of checking out some of his other work. But I do appreciate the uniqueness of how this I guess, there's a lot of suicidal ideation, how that is depicted in this film. It's very unique, and I think that stays with me. And I think it will continue to stay with me. Like how it was able to portray like the build up to a suicide in a way that wasn't manipulative to the audience. Because for some of the things that don't stick as well for me, I can very confidently say that this movie did not have um, emotional manipulation to the audience throughout the build up. It was very like just depiction and like didn't tell you how to feel. So I think that was just very unique, and I hadn't really seen that in a lot of movies before, where it's just like portraying such a complex and disturbing and emotional topic without like being manipulative is such a tricky tightrope to walk. Even other movies that have depicted strong emotions like grief and like Manchester by the Sea. Like I really enjoyed a lot of that movie and I thought it was well done, but it still feels like emotionally manipulative, even not in a bad way. It just still is. To have a movie like I said, even though it didn't all emotionally connect with me, it still depicted that just stark feeling. I could feel that heaviness in a way, and to have it not be like stereotypical Hollywood emotion was unique. I appreciated that.
I agree. I think about that scene in Iron Claw, and this is big spoilers, sorry, but it's also real life events where one of the brothers commits suicide, right? And immediately afterwards, it shows them with all his other. And I'm laughing. It's not a funny scene. It was very sad.
It is a little over the top.
He goes. They show him in heaven with his brothers going, "Oh, come over here, get in the boat," and it's like that's the biggest version of emotional manipulation. And sure, it worked. It did work, but this was so different. Like you don't know. And it doesn't really matter. The whole purpose is that it doesn't matter. They're just gone. These people are just not here anymore, and their stuff's not here anymore. They don't exist in any version of realm of society, and just take that for what it is because that's all you get.
I knew this movie was going to be like disturbing going in, but I think there's a, and maybe I'm curious to check out some of his other stuff because I think there's a movie in here that kind of like where I thought it was going, where it depicts guilt and like, the manifestation of guilt through suicide. Like if they had like done something horrible or something, and that was like what drove them to this, and there could have been a different movie in there that was just is technically well done, but like actually like really disturbing to me personally and like really stuck with me. Whether it be guilt or like or something maybe I've actually experienced. I can't think off the top of my head, but like I feel like there's skills in craft here that could portray a different type of intense emotion and reaction that the movie wasn't. And I'm curious to see if his unique perspective into this feeling in this world. I wonder what else he's been able to accomplish with that kind of uniqueness.
And I would just love for one day Michael Haneke to just sit down and give us a little manifesto of what his perfect world looks like. Because the one thing that I really don't know, I'm like, what would Michael Haneke, and he probably doesn't have an answer for this either. That's the most frustrating part, is like, what if we're rejecting the consumerism in this sort of way? Because he doesn't strike me as a dude who's like, let's all just sit around the fireplace and sing Kumbaya forever and then be like vulnerable that way. Like, what does it look like? Because I think tapping into that answer, and this is maybe overstating and giving him a lot more significance in a lot of different ways than maybe any one artist should have, it could solve a lot of German families' problems. Like, where do you move from there? If I could ask Michael Haneke one question, it would definitely be like, what does the ideal family look like to you?
Yeah, like what is
just
that?
Tell me that.
I think about other directors, like even though they're different themes, like someone like Ari Aster, and like basically using his films as like family trauma therapy sessions, like like what I would ask him, like what's your ideal world look like? What gets you out of this trauma you're depicting on film? Like where's your head at? And I can see Haneke's a similar level of disturbing and unique that it's like, I'm glad with the message. It's not preachy, but it's like, I do. What's the underlying? What's really going on up there?
Is there a better thing that you can think of, or are you just real hating on what exists? I'm glad you brought up Aster, because Aster is the reason why I chose to watch this film and got excited about it, is because he loves the seventh continent in particular. Like
that doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and so you can see it here. So that's the whole thing. Willie, as always, pleasure talking to you about movies, about sports. If you want to listen to fantasy football podcasts from the two of us, we do Double Doinkers. We just finished up all of our divisional wrap-ups. Very excited about that. 2026 season should be fun. And of course, Willie's been on a lot of these other pods with me, so check those out. The next movie I believe you'll be seeing, and this is all kind of like a little wonky right now because of the changeover in format, it should be our, I'm going to give it quote unquote review, but more of our celebration of Obsession, because it just came out today.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, cool. On streaming platforms, but also 4K, Blu-ray, DVD, etc. So that's exciting because now everyone can watch it. The people who didn't watch it, which I would assume is almost no one because it made so much money in theaters, right? But if you didn't watch it, go check it out, especially now it's a little bit easier. Speaking of which, Willie, do you want a digital code of this movie?
Can I? Yeah, I can stream it.
You can. Yeah, I want to watch. Have the digital code. I'm gonna just rip this thing on it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
It's probably still $100 to buy on.
Yeah, it's like $25 on Amazon Prime. Let's not do that. I'll give you the code.
Sweet.
But we'll be talking about Obsession. It deserves it. I don't care. You've heard it from everybody. I don't care. It's a movie that deserves the celebration. So we'll be talking about that. Until then, we have to cancel the newspaper subscription. Igor and the pod.
Goodbye, Master.
Yeah!